Near-mint condition, the home of collected editions. Oh my gosh, look at that panel of Batman. You have the absolute, you have the deluxe. DC Comics firing on all cylinders.
Hello everybody, welcome to Near Mint Condition, and today we're going to be taking a first look at the DC Finest Plastic Man, the origin of Plastic Man. Let's get into it. Alright everybody, I am Dom of X, the manager of said channel. Today again, we are going to be taking a look at the DC Finest Plastic Man, the origin of Plastic Man by Jack Cole trade paperback. Here is a front look at Plastic Man, the origin of Plastic Man, the front cover by Jack Cole from issue number 1. Here is a closer look at the spine. You can take a gander there with the years 1941 to 1944. And here is a look at the back with the same presenting DC Finest stories with incredible issues from Police Comics and Plastic Man. The timeline, select covers from Police Comics. Let's go ahead and dive in. All right, let's go ahead and take a look inside DC Finest Plastic Man, the origin of Plastic Man. Here is more cover illustrations by none other than Jack Cole. Here's a look at the left-hand side. We have the copyrighted information with names that you actually might notice, like Ed Cronin and Gil Fox from Quality Comics. And then on the right-hand side are your table of contents, all written, illustrated, and lettered by Jack Cole, and all covers illustrated by him again, unless otherwise noticed. You'd get Gil Fox, who does a good majority of the first couple of issues of Police Comics, featuring different characters from Quality Comics in that era, and then a continuation on there with the regular offhand warnings of, yes, this was published in the 1940s, there might be some outdated material that probably wouldn't have made its way on the page had it been published today. So this collects Police Comics issues 1 through 36 and Plastic Man 1944 issues 1 through 2. This is of course a $39.99 retailing for graphic novel at 584 pages of content. This has been previously collected in the Plastic Man archives, volumes 1 through 8, which collect up to issue 10 of Plastic Man from 1944, and then you have the PS art books that also published this. There was a first volume called Art Book Softy for Plastic Man. Founded in 1937 during the height of the Great Depression, there was a company called Quality Comics that was focused on creating these comic strip periodicals. Before National Comics Publications, which eventually became DC Comics, bought it out in 1956, Quality was able to produce multiple lines of comics that included Police Comics, of which the Plastic Man stories are collected in here. If you're looking for Phantom Lady or 711 or Mouthpiece, those aren't going to be in here, but rest assured the Plastic Man issues are going to be in here. Jack Cole was one of those strip cartoonists that Quality Comics hired in 1940 and was also, I found out to very to be surprised at this, uncredited in helping Will Eisner on The Spirit, which some of those stories can be found in these issues of Police Comics. He would eventually author and create Eel O'Brian, who is of course known as Plastic Man to the general public. One thing that I'm very impressed by, at least with this comic, is how he was able to draw, write, and letter all the respective issues of Plastic Man, sort of figuring out how to put in how much to put in each specific panel, because of course nowadays a lot of these stories are a bit more decompressed, with any one of these one panel pages where he's talking to a police officer, or he's trying to apprehend a criminal, or is getting out into his rubber costume. You would have those stories be very much drawn out in today's day and age, but since this is the golden age, you have a lot of these panels just being in one. But I really appreciate that he was able to make this feel like a fun, long comedy strip that you would read in a Sunday magazine. Very, very awesome to have a lot of these nickel and dime sort of issues have all of this content featured, and I think that we owe a big thanks to Jack Cole for being one of the ones to push the medium, one of the more underrated ones in the golden age, next to Will Eisner, Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster, and Bill Finger, and the likes of those creators. I even like some of the distinct references that he makes. Sometimes panels will have dialogue bubbles that have different letters that are colored. Like, for example, you have some in pink, you have some in red, which kind of adds to a little bit of the pop fun that you have here in these Plastic Man comics. Sometimes you'll have yellow dialogue boxes when Plastic Man is talking. And sometimes you'll even have pink boxes if Plastic Man is like in a single talking head against another person. It kind of adds to the immersion of the differences between some of the bits where it's Plastic Man thinking or it's Plastic Man sort of monologuing off to himself. And then other stories where he's maybe, apprehending a criminal or talking to somebody, talking to a police chief, something of the sort, right? Where it is a little bit different in what you are expected to do. Plastic Man first appeared in Police Comics #1. Against a cast of 4 other characters, which include Firebrand, Human Bomb, Phantom Lady, and the Mouthpiece. The origin story is, of course, if you swing by too closely, again, because these panels are very, very much, you have to be locked onto the book, making sure that you're reading every single bit and portion of it, because again, that's just how comics were. You have sort of these guards at a place called the Crawford Chemical Works, where they find a gang that tries to steal $100,000 boots of loot. That is a lot of money. As one of them yelled halt, shot his gun, it hit this man named Eel, which made him trip as a whole vat of acid spilled onto him. As the gang got away in a yellow cab, he was left alone, wandering through the swamps, trying to get away from the police. And then he got into the mountains until he eventually passed out into unconsciousness. When he awakens, he finds himself talking to a monk in a monastery in a place called Rest Haven, where he informs, because Eel asks, hey, am I in heaven? Did I die? Did I pass away? What is this? He says, no, rest assured, he is in a place called Rest Haven. He's not actually in heaven, and that he found him aside on a trail unconscious. Next thing you know, you have this monk who told him, like, hey, I managed to turn the police away, and I'm going to give you a chance, sort of get a second opportunity at life, maybe look at stuff differently instead of being this criminal who steals money and makes off with the rest of the bad guys in the city. So no more would Eel O'Brian decide and try to be a criminal. He wakes up later on the side of his bed, finding himself stretchier than usual. And that is how you get the Plastic Man. He tries to stretch out his arms. You know how we stretch out our arms when we wake up? He realizes, hey, I can have my arms be as long as the room I'm in. And his face is incredibly stretchy, and he bends his cheeks and makes some funny poses. Next thing you know, he realized that he got the second chance to right his wrongs thanks to the monk, and dedicates himself to stopping criminals by posing as his regular Eel O'Brien self to try to get under people's boots, sort of like how Clark Kent in Superman or in Action Comics decides to go undercover by going undercover and then going out as Superman. You now have him posing as Plastic Man, getting into his rubber costume as that persona. So later in the issue, you have the gang sort of finding themselves shocked when Eel is somehow still alive, a miracle of every sort, as they beg for his forgiveness. They're sorry that they left him because they went off in a yellow cab. But Eel says, hey, what's done is done. Let's move on with the future. Forget that all of this happened, and hopefully our lives will be okay. During another heist, he sort of suits up in a rubber costume, naming himself the Plastic Man as he guises himself to sort of blend in with the backgrounds in the issue. You have him turning into a rug, which I think I just find hilarious, honestly. Some of the shapes that he turns into, some of the objects that he turns himself into, it is a lot of fun to be able to see him sort of blend in with the background. And it's a police comic, right? You need to go undercover with some of the actions that are placed in this. And as the criminals that he was with sort of get back in the car, he actually drives over to the police station where in a panel you have him sort of stretching out his arm, his left arm, and it creeps the criminals and they end up being turned in. The police ask him what's going on and they say, hey, there's this plastic man running around and he was the one beating us, and the police are like, what's a plastic man? So very, very fun first issue of Police Comics. You're going to have a lot of same of the sorts here as well. The character was so popular amongst readers that they began placing his stories at the front with issue number 9 and forward. So you have Plastic Man now as the forefront of all of these Police Comics stories. And also with issue 9, you have sort of the wider context of how society felt about World War II. It was placed in that issue, be it May, the response to the Japanese naval attack on Pearl Harbor. None better than hairy arms from that issue. Yes, Plastic Man was... I just find it weird that it was a lot more popular than Will Eisner's Spirit at the time. Will Eisner's Spirit was routinely placed in the 4th or 5th of these 7 to 8 page or 7 to 8 story anthology issues. Eisner's Spirit would eventually make it up to number 2, but Plastic Man was routinely on the front, as you can see here, at the front of each issue now with his covers, and all colored and art drawn by Jack Cole for those specific covers. This might technically not be the Plastic Man that you're reading in, I would even say, Grant Morrison or Mark Waid's JLA run, because that's really where he got his first push through in the DC universe, aside from the short 4 or 5 issue miniseries in the late 80s. But the comedic beats that pop up every now and then with sort of the wild fighting that Eel O'Brian finds himself in, as you continue to read the title, there's a lot less Eel O'Brian and you get a lot more Plastic Man. So I think a lot of what you are going to be seeing nowadays, where yes, it's not the Eel O'Brian guy who's trying to get in and figure out what's going on with the crooks that he's spending with, it's a lot more of the hokey dokey, fun, comedic, slapstick humor that you would expect from somebody like Plastic Man. If you are reading, say, I keep going back to one of those JLA issues where Mark Waid writes him and Big Barda, he puts himself on Big Barda as her clothing and she doesn't realize it until it's too late. I would say a lot of that humor is kind of prevalent in Plastic Man. It kind of reminds me, at least reading through these issues for the first time, it reminds me of the Lego Batman video game, Beyond Gotham, the third one, where you have Plastic Man having and needing to masquerade as different objects so you can push through what you need to do to get a mini kit, is what they were called in those Lego games. Those vibes are the same ones that I got from here. So 10-year-old me, I think, would have loved to read some of these stories in that context. It's not that I found a lot of these issues to be unfunny. I think my prerogative, looking back on some of this now, is the comedic beats for me are when Jack Cole just decides to get creative, drawing Plastic Man in the weirdest of situations, whether he's fighting a criminal, apprehending someone, stretching himself. Those are the bits I find funny, and the enjoyment of it comes from him stretching out his arms or stretching out his face. Those are the parts that make me laugh. And I do think that Cole's ability to sort of draw these expressions and bravado for Plastic Man it's unmatched from the Golden Age material that I have read before with the JSA and with Superman and even Batman. So in that context, I actually would take this material over those as far as an enjoyment level is concerned. That is where my stem of enjoyment comes from this series and where I get my laughter from this series as well. You have some of these characters who stay in multiple issues. Since they are short stories, sometimes they move over from one of these anthology short stories that are 5 to 6 pages to the next one. You've got Madame Brute and her School for Delinquent Girls, which make it in for a couple of issues. You got a weird guy called the Owner of the Stealing Hands, which is a very, very fascinating issue to say the least. I actually find a lot of those silhouettes that Jack Cole drew from that issue 8, to be some of the strongest ones that I've found in this book. And even a short introduction with even a small possible rogues gallery with the Indian rubber man who bounces, bends, and shrinks. Again, keep in mind that this was published in a time where racism and sexism was a lot more prevalent, like they do explain at the front of the book. But none of the issues are altered in here. Like if you're reading from issue to issue, they manage to not censor anything, which I think is great, especially for this medium. But I do appreciate that they do have the warning and the panhandle just to make sure that people who are reading these series, they don't get frustrated if, they cut a certain section out. Now, I will say some of the covers have been a little bit altered because of the imagery in the 1940s. But alas, most of the material, if not all, is completely untouched. There are some characters here who also remind me of other classic cartoons and characters from around this time. Butch looks a lot like Popeye. You have my favorite issue from this manages to be issue number 24, where you as the reader are stuck trying to figure out who the real Plastic Man is and who isn't. You got 100 Plastic Men who are just shoved in there. A lot of them are robots. You have to figure out why those robots were made to begin with. But Plastic Man is trying to figure out what is going on. It's super fun. And the novelty of this, too, is that there is a lot of fourth wall breaking. He asks you, like, hey, if you want to see more of me, be sure to write an email, buy the book with your dimes. A lot of fun stuff like that, where, like, the novelty of it is very, very transparent in the fact that they wanted to keep this going. I think Jack Cole wanted to keep this going because his creativity and his imagination to be able to put him in these situations unmatched from anything else of the golden age that I have read. I'm really, really happy that I managed to read a lot of this material beforehand, be able to experience it in physical for the first time is such a treat to have. It's such an awesome thing to be. This is something that I want to go back to just to categorize and think myself on. When I think of Plastic Man, what do I think of this? Am I thinking of the DC Universe integration in Morrison JLA and, again, the late 80s series? Or am I thinking of the Quality Comics series where Jack Cole just said, we're going to write and draw the wildest caper issues of him masquerading as Eel O'Brian and saying, hey, like, we need to change up the game here. So Jack Cole, tremendous job, and I think you guys would be able to enjoy it too. Again, just keep in mind with the context of the times on top of the golden age type of storytelling where it is a lot more comic strip from a newspaper than the Bendis era decompression type for stories. And as far as extras are concerned, there are none in the back. They do have the other DC Finest, but that, as they say, is that. Now, if you're looking to buy a DC Finest, the Plastic Man, be sure to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code Near Mint Condition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more.
And that's going to be it for me. Let me know down in the comment section if you enjoy Golden Age content. If you are going to pick up this, I definitely had a blast with it. But that, as they say, is that I'm Domovex. Please stay safe, Minties, and have an awesome one.